Finally, on our program tonight, we have Dr. David Hanna, who is going to share a little bit of an overview of the principles of peace, I believe. And we will have a presentation of Peace Ambassador Award. So please try, I apologise for the delay and the time is moving on, but if you can give it up for our Peace Ambassadors in a few minutes after David concludes with the closing remarks today, I'd be very grateful. And yeah, so David is the President of North Europe, UPF, the region that we're in, with the 6 other nations, the UK and the Scandinavian Nordic countries, and Iceland. So David is going to share with us a little bit about the work that he does and the vision of UPF, the Principles of Peace.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Great to see you. Thank you very much, Colin. And greetings to all of you, especially our distinguished speakers and guests and brothers and sisters. Very wonderful. Some I'm meeting now for the 2nd or 3rd time, so it's excellent. You know, our founder passed away, our founder of UPF passed away in 2012. That was mentioned 11 years ago already. So I was thinking, you know, if he were here today, what would he want to say to us? You know, I've no doubt that he would love to have been here, would have been fascinated by what he heard, and deeply appreciative of the concerted efforts that led to the Good Friday Agreement, especially its 25 years and growing history. His wife and co-founder of UPF, Dr. Hanna, she'd given a public speech in Dublin in 1993. That was towards the end of my own family's 7-year assignment working with the unification movement here in, that was in Dublin, in Ireland, and our children had their early education there, all 6. In fact, 2 were born in Dublin. And my wife, who I think everybody has recognized now, is hiding very, very uncharacteristically behind gentlemen there. So she pioneered, as we say in our movement. Pioneered means you go to a place just yourself, and you have to, you know, raise your funds, find a place to live, start telling people about the work that you're doing, and gathering people that way. She did that for 3 months in Belfast and Northern Ireland, so she knows every corner of Northern Ireland. Much more than I do. I was away somewhere else doing, I don't know, studies at the time. So, Reverend Moon visited and gave a public speech, also in the Stormont Hotel in Dublin, but I don't think they ever visited Northern Ireland, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
So, well, there's still time. I will try and work on Mrs. Moon, if she can come, right? And he spoke of the Republic and Northern Ireland and the UK. When he did, it was almost as though they should just be one, to be honest. I don't know, that probably offends almost everybody, but, you know, he just didn't think in terms of barriers. Maybe it was his experience of his homeland in Korea that made him all the more passionate about seeing a world without borders. And he was very serious about that. We heard about the international highway from Professor Escalona, and very eloquently put, you know, in the first instance, that project, that visionary project, is border busting, you know, is to get rid of borders. In fact, part of the original proposal, he was suggesting that this highway is in a mile-wide corridor. And in that corridor, you don't need visas, you don't need passports. Right? So already getting people out of this kind of very compartmentalized thinking. You have to go through all these checks. I don't know how that would work, but still it's the vision. You know, without the vision, you're never going to get anywhere near there. So he was certainly one to acknowledge and support peacemaking efforts, and very unafraid to talk to anyone. He made it his goal going back to 1976, after celebrating the American bicentennial, he announced, next is we march to Moscow. That's 1976, right? And they sent a chill down my spine, but I didn't know what I was going to be asked to do next, you know, trudging across the fields of Eastern Europe or something. But how did he do it? He did it by bringing current and former world leaders to a Summit Council conference and facilitating an exchange of journalists between East and West on fact-finding tours using the World Media Association that he had founded. He knew that both sides had a lot to learn from first-hand experience of the other's country. And they've all been writing their different articles from their own perspective. But swap them over, get them to see what life is really like, whether it's in Russia of that time or America of that time, and then they would probably change their tune a little bit, right? On both sides, interestingly. So he met with Mikhail Gorbachev, he met with, of course, many people know the meeting with Kim Il-sung, the North Korean dictator, and, you know, he risked imprisonment in doing that and setting that, even risked his life in going there to reconcile with a person who, you know, had been responsible for his imprisonment and torture. So, quite extraordinary life. He met with leaders in the Middle East at the center of that conflict, and he brought thousands of people from all backgrounds and walks of life to the Middle East to be a presence for peace. This was the so-called Middle East Peace Initiative, or MEPI. And visitors there heard from all sides of the conflict without judgment and surrendering their own prejudices. Again, listening and talking, right? Having real conversations and finding out firsthand. These are things that he really advocated and showed in his own kind of example as well. Immediately after inaugurating the Universal Peace Federation, he embarked on a world-speaking tour to 120 nations, and his wife, Dr. Hakja Hanmun, then inherited that foundation and embarked on an 180 country speaking tour together with her sons. And this took 6 months to complete. As a couple, they sacrificed their personal and family time completely and themselves sought to be a presence for peace wherever they went. And Mother Moon, of course, continues this work aged 80. You will know that Father Moon endured 6 periods of unjust incarceration, and there were many people who obviously considered him to be their enemy, even though he did not think of them that way. He saw and proclaimed the coming of a Pacific Rim era, and also the age of women. And when on a speaking tour of New Zealand, he proclaimed that the kingdom of heaven would come when 70% of the world's leaders were women. Whoa. So, Mrs. Moon herself was pioneering the Women's Federation for World Peace, calling for what she called the logic of love, a feminine touch in bringing genuine peace. This is an area that still has to receive much more focus, am I right?
Yes.
And greater prominence, and may well be the way to ensure the next 25 years of peace here in this part of the world. I'm just throwing it out there, right? So let me have a go at saying what I believe Reverend Moon might say to us today, based on his words. He said, people have continually worked for peace, but largely based on human effort alone. Consider the confrontation between democracy and communism. Outwardly, the difference between the two was the extent to which they recognized and ensured individual rights and freedoms. Yet from the viewpoint of God's providence, communism and democracy are like children who have lost their parents. The two divided into the positions, and here he used a typology that has decidedly biblical roots. The two divided into the positions of Cain and Abel, respectively, and became trapped in the shackles of fraternal conflict. And most conflict can be viewed as a war between brothers, right? He helpfully described the history of thought and culture as being formed by these two opposing worldviews. The Cain type and the Abel type. A line from Cain through Hellenism, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment and communism, and a line from Abel through Judeo-Christian culture, the Reformation, the Second Reformation, and democracy. But he always stressed that these two are not to be seen as good versus evil, as either side may want to do, but as two brothers who must unite, combining the best that each has to offer, like the coming together of mind and body in a person, of wholesomeness and integrity. He talked of going beyond the artificial distinctions of left-wing and right-wing, promoting goodness wherever it is found. And he termed the new approach of his as head-wing philosophy, not left-wing or right-wing, but head-wing, or to a more religious audience he called it Godism. Throughout history, peace movements and peace efforts would reach their limits and often end in failure, he said, because they were organized and advanced by imperfect human beings. The United Nations, although launched with the splendid dream of ending the scourge of war and realizing world peace, has to admit its inherent limitations and confess that it can no longer give hope to humanity. He saw the era's changing, really. The post-conflict efforts of the League of Nations and then the United Nations were made in an era prior to the time when God could directly govern the unfolding of his providence in history. But he saw this as something that would inevitably change. Efforts made today will indeed have different results to efforts made 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or maybe even 25 years ago. He saw the need and campaigned for the development of an upper house in the United Nations that would convene wise and sincere religious leaders of all faiths, cultural leaders, and international educators into a body naturally more open to and more desirous of inspiration from above, from a universal source of goodness. Now, to say peace starts with me, it's a contemporary expression of the essential approach that is the religious approach. You know, I have to start and find peace in myself. First of all, I have to find that peace. And that implies that it takes people of good heart, people of integrity, those who think of the happiness of others more than the achievement of their own personal goals, to ensure resolution to conflicts. And I'm sure that the Good Friday Agreement is a testament to this fact. Without the individuals involved who had personal integrity, it could not have been achieved. Can I hear an amen? Amen. Thank you. Wonderful. I just want to jump a little bit and talk about what's coming next, because we're going to be installing, or well, what's the word you use? We're going to be appointing, ambassadors for peace. Right? So this actually was launched in 2001 before UPF. Ambassadors for Peace is the largest and most diverse network of peace leaders. As of 2020, there are more than 100,000 ambassadors for peace. That's the only statistic I could find. Now, 3 years later, it might be double that. And they range from 160 countries. They come from all walks of life, representing different races, religions, nationalities, cultures, and they commit to certain things. To stand on the common ground of universal moral principles, promoting reconciliation, overcoming barriers, and building peace. To form a global network representing the diversity of the human family and all disciplines of endeavor. to promote cooperation beyond boundaries of religion, race, ethnicity, and nationality. Are you with me? And to practice living for the sake of others as the guiding principle for building a global community. You know, one of my, I don't know if a hero is the right word, but a person that always intrigues me is Saint Augustine. And he said, pray as though everything depends on God, and work as though everything depends on you. I think that's a wonderful balance in life. And there was an Ignatian scholar who put it the other way around. He said, pray as if everything depends on you, and work as if everything depends on God. I think either way is okay, actually. It's really the most kind of healthy and necessary of partnerships is between God and us. And it's broad, it's universal. From today's proceedings, and I feel I've been just floating on a cloud as I've listened to all of this. It's been very, very amazing, man. From today's proceedings, may you have hope, and may we ensure that there is lasting peace and a bright and beautiful future in this wonderful part of the world. Amen. Thank you to all of you who've made this day possible. Thank you.